Welcome back to Starkiller Base. Today we have our feature match from round 3 of the 401 Games Winter Kit in February 2017. On the left we have a gentleman named Patrick playing Vader Raider, and on the right we have a gentleman named Chris playing eAckbar Hired Gun, affectionately known as Cash and Guns, because it has a lot of guns and can generate a heck of a lot of money. So this is round 3 of our tournament. Like I said, I believe these two players were both 1-1 or 0-2 at this point. I would have liked to record the matches that took place on table 2 every round, but the store was a little bit lax in telling people which table they were supposed to play at, so I just picked people that had interesting decks to play. So Patrick is a new player. I believe this is his first tournament, and so they did a roll-off, and Patrick gets to choose which battlefield to bring to the table. The choice between Rebel War Room and Imperial Armory, when you're looking at a deck across the table that has a lot of pay sides, it's definitely the right choice to pick the Armory and not give them their battlefield. So Chris puts 2 shields on eAckbar, and let's see what Patrick's going to start off with here. When I'm facing the eAckbar Guns deck, I think that I would still be most likely to kill eAckbar. He's got 2 dice to start off with. He's got the same amount of hit points, but one of the biggest problems is when you're trying to take out a hired gun and all of a sudden he puts a second chance out there and makes your life a lot more difficult. When eAckbar can focus those hired gun sides to 3 range damage and bring the pain like that, it's important to get rid of a character that strong.
Nice.
So Patrick puts a hunker down out on Vader and gets a shield, and Chris rolls in 2 resources from eAckbar and takes them. When you're playing against the Vader Raider deck, it's a difficult call to tell which to kill. Vader is definitely the more difficult opponent to handle. So if you can take him out early, you can really swing the game in your favor. I try to focus on Vader because the Raider's there, and he's kind of nice, and he can help you with electroshocks and that sort of thing that requires you to spot a yellow character. But he's only got 1 die, he's got less hit points, and he can't naturally put blue upgrades on himself. He needs to use holocrons to do so. So Vader came in, and Chris put in a DL44 on the hired gun and forced Patrick to remove one of his Vader dice, and then he rolled in the hired gun and the DL44 and got a couple of blanks, and now Patrick is taking a resource.
I'm gonna put in a flamethrower.
Chris plays at a DH17 on his other hired gun. You can see there the hired guns do look different. That is because Chris is playing with my alternate art cards that I made. So the eAckbar there and the hired gun at the top of your screen there are both from that set. So a flamethrower comes out on the Tusken Raider, which is an interesting choice. And then Chris rolls in the hired gun at the top of the screen, gets a resource and a +2 ranged.
Sorry, I will. There you go. Okay. And
Tusken Raider comes in with a shield and a disrupt, which is definitely not what he was looking for. Chris mentions to Patrick that he could discard a card using the Tusken Raider's ability to immediately trigger one of those dice, but obviously with those sides it's not really that interesting.
discard?
I'd be tempted to keep that disrupt on the flamethrower as much as I want to do some damage to my opponent because of those pay sides on the hired guns there. Chris has currently got no money, but he's got 1 resource showing, so if he doesn't roll any more resources, then you can stop him from doing any of that damage. So for example, this situation here, Chris can take a resource and then do 4 damage, but if Patrick leaves that disrupt out, he can make sure that Chris can't actually get those dice off. It's definitely tempting to re-roll a flamethrower and try to get some melee damage there, but Patrick has no money, so it may be the best choice to just sit on the disrupt still. So Patrick plays He Doesn't Like You, removes the flamethrower die to remove the 2 range damage. That effectively does the same thing as what I was referring to, but Chris could re-roll and end up getting some pay sides. So I think I would put the shield on the Tusken Raider since Vader has his own method for generating shields in hunker down there. There isn't any melee damage coming out from Chris's side of the board, so the hunker down should be there for a while until Patrick decides to overwrite.
Sorry, I don't remember.
Chris claims and does not use the claim ability, and Patrick looks like he's about out of things to do.
That's all I can do. Okay.
So, as I was saying earlier about which character to take out in the Vader Raider deck, Vader is definitely the bigger threat, so it's actually a good choice to put the flamethrower on the Tusken Raider to make the choice a bit more difficult. If all the good upgrades go out on Vader, then Vader's going to get pounded on first, so this sort of splits the threat a little bit. Although having 8 hit points and no hunker down on you, that Tusken Raider's not going to last very long. So Chris starts putting out an IQA on the hired gun at the bottom of the screen there, and that thing is going to be able to do some serious damage.
I'm gonna play data pad.
And Patrick's putting a data pad out on the Tusken Raider. Chris rolls in the hired gun, and true to form here, gets another mitt full of blanks. So if Patrick was running Feel Your Anger, that would just wipe out all of his dice right now. Definitely not something you ever want to see when you're rolling in a hired gun with 2 3-cost upgrades, but sometimes the dice do it to you. Patrick rolls in the Tusken Raider, gets 1 disrupt, 1 range, and 1 resource on the data pad.
I would not.
eAckbar is coming in. Hopefully Chris can get some focuses there and fix his dice. That's one of the beautiful things about the double focus, is that it can really help you mitigate the luck from having randomness to dice and that sort of thing.
Electroshock?
Patrick electroshocks and gets rid of the 2 focus, which is a brilliant idea, because that would be turning into 6 damage in 1 turn, no doubt. Top hired gun comes in, gets a disrupt and a 1 shield. So Chris has definitely got to do some re-rolling here. I think Patrick needs to get Vader in as soon as possible here. He hasn't seen a holocron yet. So he rolls a 2 disrupt and a 3 melee damage.
Thank you.
So Patrick's definitely got the disrupt to keep this cash and guns deck down, but I'm sure he'd rather see the damage. Chris discards the reroll, gets 3 more blanks. Holy smokes. Has a 3 range for 1 and a 2 range damage. So Patrick should probably disrupt that resource now and make it so that Chris can't put 5 damage into one of his characters. Chris is giving Patrick a little bit of assistance here because he's a newer player, and it just goes to show you how great the Destiny community is, that even in a tournament you can get a little bit of help if you're a new player. I know Chris personally from our board game nights up where I live, so he's a really nice guy. So Chris now has a lot of range damage showing with 2 pay sides and happens to have 2 resources there as well. So unfortunately for Patrick, he could disrupt both resources, so Chris can just stagger the resources and not stop both of them from being fired off. He'll still be able to get at least 1 off. So if I were Patrick, I would start putting those Vader dice into probably eAckbar, although I have to say with all those upgrades on him, that bottom hired gun is looking pretty juicy there. I'd probably switch targets to the bottom hired gun now and take him out as quickly as possible. With those 3-cost upgrades on there, Chris can easily, with no money, just swap 1 out for a second chance. But if he has done that, all of a sudden there's 1 less DL-44 firing lasers in your face.
Okay. I think this sort of makes sense.
So Patrick is going to deflect the 3 side into hopefully the bottom hired gun. We'll see.
Hard gun.
There we go. So the bottom hired gun takes 2 damage, and he's going to probably take 3 more in just a moment. Chris is taking a resource. Patrick has the opportunity to disrupt it and slow Chris down by a turn, which is probably the best choice. He's still going to get the 2 damage off, but it's only 2 damage, so it's not too bad. So I think I'd be putting this 3 melee and the 1 ranged into that bottom hired gun and try to get him off the board as soon as possible. So there we go. Chris puts 2 damage into Vader. So at this point, you sort of look at the battlefield and say, you know, what do I have in my hand? What can I play out? Do I need the battlefield? Does taking the battlefield from my opponent prevent him from doing things like dug in and defensive position? If that is the case, sometimes leaving that one damage or that one shield out on the table can definitely help your game, even though it seems like a waste. If next action you did one damage to Chris's character, and then the first thing next turn he puts 3 shields on because he has the battlefield and plays dug in, then you're gonna realize your mistake there. So Chris rolls in eAckbar and gets his 2 single range damage sides, which is always kind of funny to see in my mind. If you haven't checked it out already, be sure to check out the playlist for the 4-1 Games tournament that we're watching here. There should be 2 more games posted as the time of this posting, and then there'll be 1 more of the finals coming up shortly. So Patrick hunkers down on Vader, and Chris rolls in that hired gun and does not come up with 3 blanks. He gets a resource, 1 blank, and a +3. He has the potential to do 5 damage here, and unfortunately for Patrick, he has 2 black range sides, which means that it'll be difficult for Patrick to mitigate both of those.
Isolation.
Patrick plays Isolation, which in a perfect world would have been great to use on the IQA, except unfortunately it is a character die only. So he did the right call, getting rid of the +3 if he could have, but unfortunately the best he could have done was getting rid of one of the eAckbar dice and still take 4 damage. But in a tournament, if both players miss something or agree on a ruling or whatnot, then that's how the game rolls. So Chris has put out a second chance on that bottom hired gun, making Patrick's life more difficult. And Patrick rolls in the Tusken Raider, gets a 2 melee, a 1 ranged, and a blank. If it were close to the kill, he could have discarded a card and put that 2 melee into something. With the Tusken Raider's ability, when the character has 3 hit points left plus a second chance, there's no real point in rushing that.
No, it's fine.
So let's see if Patrick can get some blue ability upgrades out with his holocron here. Chris rolls in the top hired gun and gets a shield and a resource, and I think here comes Big Daddy Vader. He discards the Millennium Falcon from his ability, and Vader rolls 2 blanks and a +1 resource. So the blanks are on fire today in this game, it seems. Chris takes a shield in that bottom hired gun to make him that much more difficult to kill. I mean, he's got 9 resources worth of upgrades on that thing now, so it's definitely a big investment. I would definitely be trying to take it out as fast as possible. Put all my damage and my resources into taking it out.
Wow.
Patrick discards and rerolls a bunch more blanks.
Same.
Gets that 1 ranged again and a special on the holocron, so maybe he can get something going here with a mind probe or a force throw or something like that. Chris discards to reroll 1 die and gets a +2 on the DL44, so he's got the potential to do 4 damage here, and it's most likely to go through. So Patrick activates the holocron and puts in a force choke. And Chris is just reminding him that he can pay a resource to roll the die in immediately. And I think he's going to pass on doing that. It wouldn't be bad to try to get the special and chain it off and put a damage on that bottom higher gun and remove that 2, or turn the 2 modified side into a blank. But so 4 damage goes into the Tusken Raider. And Patrick has a whole mess of dice out there that have the potential to do a ton of damage, so hopefully he's got some cards to do some rerolling.
When you do second chance, does all the stuff come back?
Just looking for a little rules clarity on second chance. I was curious if when second chance triggers, if the upgrades go away anyway. That would be really nice, but not for the person who triggers second chance.
I'll take 1 money.
So Patrick puts 1 damage into the hired gun at the bottom, and Chris takes a resource, and I'm thinking Patrick should do some re-rolling here. He has the potential to do, like I said, 8 damage if he leaves the flamethrower die alone, if he gets the 2 3s on Vader. He puts out the holocron on Vader to roll it out next turn, I guess. Chris passes, which means that he may have some sort of mitigation in his hand. Unfortunately for Chris, Electroshock won't get rid of a 3 melee damage, so Vader's got a good chance of getting some damage through here. So Patrick's switching targets. I guess he's realized that that hired gun with the second chance is too much work, so he's going to try to take out eAckbar, it looks like. He discards his last card, and Chris points out to him that eAckbar's ability is a thing. So because Patrick discarded his last card, he has to choose a character and do 2 damage to it.
I didn't know that.
Chris is letting him do a take back, which is awfully nice of him. I still think that given the potential swinging damage, I would be tempted to do it anyway. It looks like Patrick's decided that that's a little too much for him. So Chris claims the battlefield and Patrick passes.
If you want to end your, if you have nothing in your hand, yes, you can choose and deal 2 damage to one of your characters.
I see.
I don't particularly agree with doing the 2 damage to eAckbar. I think I would still focus on that hired gun because the majority of Chris's investment in resources and cards has gone into that guy, and none of them have redeploy. So if you can get rid of them, then you'll be in a much better state than you were before. Chris rolls in, gets a 2 range for 1, a +2 range, and a special on the IQA, which is the 2 unblockable damage. That Tusken Raider is not looking too hot right now. Hopefully Patrick's got some kind of mitigation to get rid of that higher gun die. Isolation would definitely work this time. Get rid of potentially 4 damage from that. And if he does not, then I guess the best thing to do is just roll on the Tusken Raider and see what happens. You could always discard a card to use its ability right away. He could get that flamethrower force pay side off. That would be nice. Patrick is deflecting the hired gun die into somebody, which is another excellent way to do it. So he's put the damage back on that bottom hired gun again. That bottom hired gun could have already lost second chance and had 5 hit points remaining if he hadn't put damage into eAckbar. So definitely focus on a character. It's the number one thing I can say about Destiny is focus fire. If something happens to change the target that you should be going for, then okay. But in this case, it looks like that bottom hired gun is still the biggest threat by far. So Chris is rolling in the top hired gun. After playing a holdout blaster on him, gets the 2 range for 1, a blank, and a 2 range for 1.
4 damage.
And he's going to do 4 damage into that Tusken Raider, which is a little unfortunate. It would be nice if Patrick could have taken an action and try to get a side on that flamethrower to resolve immediately just to get some extra damage out. He's got a 3 damage for 1 on his Tusken Raider die alone, plus the 4 damage for 1 and a 2 melee without any pay side. So that's a bit of a lost opportunity there, especially when you've got 2 resources sitting on the table. So Vader comes in and Chris discards his second Millennium Falcon. Vader gets a Holocron special, a 2 melee, a blank, and a 2 disrupt. eAckbar comes in for 1 ranged and 1 resource. So sitting on that 2 disrupt isn't a bad choice with that pay side out there on the DH-17. I would definitely try to re-roll the 1 Vader die and resolve the Holocron special, depending on what I've got in my hand.
2 damage on...
Again, he's splitting the damage, unfortunately. Oh, maybe? Putting on an eAckbar. It is a bit of a classic new player mistake, so you'll see that if you're playing new players in a tournament or in a casual night, that they do sort of do that sometimes, and I'm not really sure the mentality. I believe I did it at first as well, but definitely you should make sure to focus fire. Another little mistake here by a new player, and one that Chris didn't catch here, is that he resolved the Holocron and put in Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which unfortunately is not a blue ability upgrade, it is a blue weapon upgrade, so it's not actually an eligible target from the Holocron. I've known a lot of people to do that one, just thinking that any blue upgrade was acceptable, but unfortunately that is not the case. If it were, I would still probably pay 1 resource to roll the die in right now, keep that tempo going, and keep the pressure on Chris's deck. So Chris does some rerolls, gets a 1 ranged, a +2 ranged, discard, and has that 1 resource remaining still, which is probably a good cost because of all those pay sides on the upgrades that he was rerolling. If I were Patrick, I would definitely reroll at least one of the dice here, probably both now that Chris doesn't have any pay sides, and also need to be mindful of eAckbar's ability with that 1 discard sitting out there, so you don't want to get rid of too much. If you've got good stuff in your hand, then maybe you don't want reroll at all because you want to keep it. He rerolls and gets a resource and a shield, which is definitely not what he's looking for. Chris resolves the discard, gets rid of a force training. Patrick tries to take a shield, but it looks like he already has 3 around here on his character there, so he's just going to probably take that back and take the resource instead. But it doesn't seem like it'll be very long before Patrick will need another shield on Vader, since there's 3 range damage sitting out there on Chris's board. I would probably pass here and then take the hit and take a shield, but I guess that gives up the... Ooh, that's a good one. Pays 1 for Force Strike and turns the Vader die into 3 melee damage, and hopefully, will he do it? Will he do it? Giving it some thought. Hits eAckbar again. Okay, so I guess at least now that he's switched targets once, he's focusing on eAckbar. I definitely think I would have hit that bottom hired gun once again. They would probably only have 1 or 2 hit points left at this point if he did focus fire. He put effectively 7 damage to eAckbar. So yes, that would actually have been enough to kill the bottom hired gun through the second chance. So Chris puts the 3 damage into Vader, and I think there's a little bit of confusion regarding that third shield. Chris claimed, and then Patrick passes, so the new round is starting here.
I'm gonna discard that.
And one thing I'm noticing on Patrick's board is that when you do have your character killed, you should put your upgrades into your discard pile, especially if there's a, say, something like a scavenge in your deck, or if the active battlefield is the Starship Graveyard, because then you could be drawing them out of there. I guess in this case it doesn't really matter, but maybe I'm just a little nitpicky. So Chris rolls in eAckbar, gets another blank and a discard. Vader comes in, and Chris discards a dodge, which he won't be using much in this. And Vader rolls a +3 on the Kylo's lightsaber, a blank, 3 melee, and a single resource. So there's 6 damage there that he could do something with. Hopefully we'll get a character dead now. Chris resolves the discard and gets rid of a thermal detonator. So I guess at this point you want to probably put the 6 damage into eAckbar just to get rid of a guy. Although now at this point those hired guns are geared up and it's going to get pretty ugly.
These have to be all to 1 character. Correct. 6 damage.
And so he switched characters again, which is... he has the potential to kill that guy. I mean, maybe I don't see something in his hand. Maybe he's got a Force Strike and he can get that 3 damage on the Vader die and just smoke that top hired gun that doesn't have second chance on him. Chris rolls in the hired gun, gets a blank, a 3 range for 1, a +2 range, and a 1 range. So if he has a Force Strike to kill that guy, now is definitely the time to do it. But with this much hesitation, it doesn't look like it. So he's paying 1 for isolation, and gets rid of the 3 damage for 1 on the hired gun die. And Chris rolls in the other hired gun, and welcome back, 3 range damage for 1. We missed you. That is a lot of blanks on Chris's board. If Patrick had Feel Your Anger in his deck, I don't know if he does or not, but this would be a great time to play it. It's a really good card. For 1 cost, it's really hard to pass up. You don't need to spot a blue character or anything. It's just a matter of taking advantage of your opponent's bad rolls, essentially. So I think Patrick has to reroll the Vader die here and try to get that 3 damage. I mean, even if he gets the 2 damage and a 4-stroke special, he can take out that top hired gun. Chris might have a second chance in hand and has 1 resource to overwrite one of his abilities, but you still need to try. I don't really agree with switching to that top hired gun. He's got 2 holdout blasters on him, it looks like. No, sorry, it was a DH-17 and a holdout blaster, so there's some redeploy there. It's not too much, thankfully. And now Chris has done some re-rolling and got a lot more range damage and a jetpack special, so now it's a little bit late to re-roll that Vader die, because even if he gets the 3, the jetpack special gets rid of it. Chris is doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage to Vader. Vader has effectively 11 hit points, so 12 hit points left, so he's got 2 hit points remaining now that his shields are gone. And it is not looking good for the Dark Lord of the Sith here. We can see here Patrick has done 6 damage to the top hired gun, 5 damage to eAckbar plus 2 shields, so call that 7, and then 7 more to the bottom hired gun. So he's done 20 damage and not killed any characters. So this is a classic example of the need to focus fire. This game would be entirely different if Patrick had taken out that bottom hired gun. He probably could have killed the bottom hard gun and eAckbar and just left it with one hard gun left at the top with whatever upgrades he had on, and then he'd have a much easier time. I mean, right now he's got 4 dice to Chris's 9, so the disparity in dice there is huge. And when dice are doing all the work and the heavy lifting for you, it's really important to try to trim off those dice. And the best way to do that, or the only way to do that, is to kill off a character.
Oh, you know, you did that last time.
Oh, I did.
Claim?
I'm going to claim.
So Patrick claims the battlefield, doesn't play any upgrades because I'm not sure how many he has in his hand. And Chris takes a resource and puts a shield on that top hired gun that doesn't have the second chance. So it's looking like this will probably be the last round of the match, with Vader only having 2 hit points left. But we'll see what happens here. There's still the potential to take out a character or something explosive. So we'll see. I think I definitely would have rolled in Vader on the first action just to get those dice in there in pool to be resolved. The backup muscle is nice, but it's a little bit too little too late at this point. Nothing on Chris's board has only 1 hit point remaining. So it looks like Chris is getting rid of the DH-17 and putting in, looks like that's an IQA. So he's paid 2 for it. And you can see here, Chris is not in a rush to get his dice into the pool to kill Vader. Apparently he's got the board presence and the die advantage and whatnot. So Patrick rolls in Vader, gets a +3 on the lightsaber, a 2 disrupt, a 1 discard, and a 1 shield, which is definitely not what he was looking for here. So Chris rolls in the top hired gun. He gets a 2 ranged for 1, and a couple of blanks. The top hired gun has 4 damage showing, and that's enough to get through that shield and kill Vader.
4 damage. That's it, doesn't kill me. 4 plus 3.
We're just doing a little accounting here, and that's the GG.
Second chance.
I would have just killed.
Chris is just mentioning to one of the observers that the second chance is tough, but you should still focus fire and take out that bottom hired gun. So thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the finals for this tournament coming up soon. Thanks again.